Good afternoon and welcome to the Thursday, April 18th, 2019 work session of the Henrico County Public School Board. Members of the board, you've had a chance to review the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
It's been moved by Reverend Cooper. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cock. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. The motion carries. The first item on the agenda is to enter a closed meeting for the discussion of matters covered under items A1 and A2 of Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia, 1950, as amended, pertaining to the following: the assignment, appointment, performance, disciplining, and release of contract for specific school board employees, and the admission and discipline of specific students, including a request for release from compulsory attendance. Members of the board, is there a motion to go into closed session for those purposes?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Augmiron. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by seconded by Mr. Pike. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We will now go to closed session. Thank you. Members of the board, we having concluded the closed session, is there a motion to certify that only those items identified in the motion for which we entered closed session were discussed while in closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved by Mrs. Augmiron, seconded by Mrs. Cock. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. The closed session is certified. And Madam Superintendent?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the first item is consideration of expulsion for students, and I would like to note that I am withdrawing my recommendation for expulsion for student case number 18-19-S-27. However, I do recommend that the school board approve the expulsion of student case numbers 18-19-S-24, or that one, yes,
Thank
for
you.
violation of the Code of Student Conduct.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Members of the board, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to adopt the recommendation for expulsion of student case number 18-19-S-24?
So moved.
Moved by Reverend Cooper. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Pike. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. I will point out to those who may be listening down the road or at this time that these matters, these student matters are identified by a case number to protect the students and their families' privacy, but that the matters were seriously and extensively considered in closed session, as well as material provided ahead of time. So I believe you had another.
Thank you. Yes, I also recommend that the school board approve the expulsion of student case number 18-19-S-28 for violation of the Code of Student Conduct.
Members of the board, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to adopt the superintendent's recommendation for the expulsion of student case number 18-19-S-28?
So moved.
Moved by Reverend Cooper. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cock. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. The motion carries.
Thank you. I'm also bringing forth a recommendation that the school board approve participation in an alternative education program for student case number 18-19-S-28.
Okay.
And what?
Oh, and also 24, I apologize.
That's okay.
Crossing out from the one I struck, that got me off track. And also asking for your approval for participation in an alternative education program for student case 18-19-S-24.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of the board, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to adopt the superintendent's recommendation that expelled students be allowed to attend an alternative education program, students being case number 18-19-S-24 and 18-19-S-28?
So moved.
Been moved by Mrs. Cock. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Pike. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. The recommendation is approved.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the release from compulsory attendance for student case number 18-19-CA-1.
Thank you, members of the board. Is there a motion to adopt the superintendent's recommendation for release from compulsory attendance for student case number 18-19-CA-1?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Augmiron. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Pike. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, the superintendent recommends that the school board approve the appointment of administrative personnel for the 1920 school year.
All right, members of the board, we have, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation for approval of the administrative appointments, which have been shared with us. Is there a motion to adopt the superintendent's recommendation for the approval of the appointments in the administrative capacity?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Pike. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cock. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries.
Thank you. And you have, the board has just approved Lenny Pritchard, Assistant Superintendent for Operations, Mark Brandenberger, Educational Specialist for Health and Physical Education, Christopher Mosley, Educational Specialist for Performing Arts, and Stephanie Stockman, Educational Specialist for World Languages. And you'll have the opportunity to meet those individuals at our monthly meeting this evening.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. I know I speak for the board as a whole in that we're always excited with bringing folks into new positions, whether we're bringing them from outside or from within, and we will assure the communities of those who some may be initially, while rejoicing for the selectee, may be disappointed to see a person leave their current position, but we will, and I know that you will work and the staff will work very quickly and diligently to fill those positions with strong leadership as well. So,
Most certainly. Thank you. So for the next item, we're pleased to be able to bring you a middle school STEAM update. And as Dr. Bray and Rachel Toy are coming to the podium, I would like to take a minute to provide some kudos to both Rachel Toy and Ingrid Grant, is over there from middle schools, Director of Middle Schools, for the phenomenal event many of you might have heard about, our Middle School STEAM Symposium that was held at the Science Museum of Virginia. It was a tremendous effort, and you'll get to hear through this presentation about the work that's been done and is planned in the coming year. So thank you to all involved.
Thank you, Dr. Cashwell. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Cashwell, I'm pleased to provide you with an update on the Henrico County Public Schools Year 1 STEAM integration work and to preview our next steps for the 2019-2020 academic year. Henrico's goals for STEAM integration include 3 areas of focus. First, increase learning experiences crafted through STEAM, which align with our vision of curriculum redesign in the Henrico learner profile. Second, we are focused on providing enrichment opportunities for students aligned to STEAM fields. And lastly, we want to provide opportunities and exposure for students to explore career pathways in STEAM, many of which exist within our own community. During the 2018-2019 academic year, Short Pump and John Rolfe Middle Schools served as our anchor schools for leading the way in STEAM integration within the 3 identified goal areas. Their experiences have informed the creation of additional resources and professional learning now taking place for the 5 middle schools as they prepare for STEAM integration beginning with the 2019-2020 academic year. Opportunities to craft learning experiences through STEAM have grown organically thanks to community-supported partnerships with Maymont and Virginia Commonwealth University. These partnerships have given us access to additional resources and professional learning experiences. During our first year of STEAM in sports, over 700 6th grade students participated in a day of hands-on learning and career exploration of STEAM-related careers within athletics. Let's take a quick look at what our students experienced.
We're going to get right to fun and activity today with STEAM and sports.
So 6th graders from Rolfe and Short Pump Middle School went to VCU to celebrate the STEAM and Sports Day.
It was a wonderful partnership between VCU Athletics, their Department of Education, and of course Henrico County Public Schools Health and PE Department.
You're going to be kicking the technology ball.
Students had a chance to work with individualized equipment that had computer chips in them that sends data information on their performance to an iPad.
So right down the middle.
The leading question that the students were trying to discover through their interaction with the ball was, how is the type of kick give me more spin and power when kicking the ball? And it would actually give them information about where on the ball that they hit and had contact, which then they could adjust their kick to hopefully get more performance out of it and make a goal.
Nice job.
Softball, with that one, does their foot position actually give them more power behind the swing of their bat? So it tells them where their power contact is, and they could see that on the iPad and then adjust their foot position to say, is it a wider stance or a narrower stance that really gives me the most power for getting that ball where I want it to go.
Which one? Do you need your feet together or apart? Which one has more power?
Apart. Go, he's got 30 seconds to shoot.
Basketball, so we actually had students take about 10 seconds and shoot the ball, and then the iPad collected information about what the percentage of their shots that they made. From that, the students had to kind of take that data and say, if I could only make one more shot, where would I choose to make that shot depending on the information? So they really had to make some inferences based on the data that they got. They also had a chance to experience some VR from an engineering standpoint.
Oh my god, oh no.
They also had a chance to go visit the Basketball Development Center that has some of those leading technologies and show off some of the careers that helps the BCU athletics teams. The really cool thing is that this equipment that they had a chance to interact with will be going back to their home schools as well, and their health and PE teachers as well as the other content area teachers will be looking for connections.
The idea is hopefully to collect some data where they can learn how they can be a better athlete, but then they can also interact with the core.
Where normally it would just happen in silos within each content area, but now we can really talk about some bigger topics and use those tools to help explore those topics.
Let's go.
Year 2 of STEAM and Sports is in the planning stages, and we look forward to STEAM and Sports becoming an integral part of our curriculum. The BWise grant partnership with Maymont exemplifies what STEAM learning looks like. This year, both anchor schools, along with Elko and Hungry Creek Middle Schools, participated in year 1 of a 3-year grant project. This powerful learning experience uses the local environment as the context for learning. Students are empowered to explore a problem within their watershed and apply their knowledge and skills across content areas to design a solution. The professional learning provided by our BWise partners helps build the capacity of our teachers to continually deliver meaningful watershed experiences as part of our curriculum. Engaging our students in authentic and connected experiences is an integral component of deeper learning. Rule of Law Day provides students the opportunity to apply their learning as it pertains to the judicial system. During Rule of Law Day, students interact with lawyers, including those from the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, members of law enforcement, and the justices from the state Supreme Court. Students are given the opportunity to argue cases based on contemporary topics inside the Supreme Court chambers. In addition, the art element engages students in the design process to create an original representation of what rule of law means to them. Pictured on the slide are some examples of artwork created by our middle school students and submitted as part of the Rule of Law art contest. Embracing learning to be student-owned is an important consideration as we continue to integrate STEAM learning experiences within our middle schools. Each middle school, being a unique learning community, has the opportunity to set their own path to STEAM integration. This year, Rolfe Middle School engaged in a school-wide problem to explore the question, how does automation change the skills we need to be life-ready? The culmination of this learning experience was shared publicly with parents in the community through student-led displays at the school's STEAM night. Short Pump Middle School infused STEAM within their content areas, one example being literacy projects where students selected a character and created an original representation of the character through a work of art. As we have shown, this year has been a year of milestones in continuing to realize our vision of putting students at the center of their learning. Professional learning for Year 2 schools has begun, giving teachers the chance to become familiar with the STEAM design tool, STEAM as an instructional strategy for deeper learning, and an understanding of the process approach to problem solving. Staff will be able to meet the intended outcomes by engaging in an online Schoology course, along with face-to-face options offered both this spring and during the summer. The STEAM Implementation and Action Guide will be used by our school teams to monitor progress and set goals for growth. Each school will share their growth through the creation of a portfolio. Celebrating and sharing this work will take place at our middle school STEAM Symposium. This event will serve as an additional opportunity to demonstrate deeper learning within our middle schools through student-led displays, interactive opportunities with professionals in STEAM fields, and information about STEAM educational pathways within an HCPS. Looking forward to the 2019-2020 academic year, 5 middle schools will join our 2 anchor schools as they work to embed STEAM learning experiences across their curriculum, along with continued collaboration with teaching and learning content specialists to build resources within our curriculum frameworks that facilitate and exemplify the deeper learning process. In consistency with Michael Fullen and our district's vision for deeper learning for all students, we are working to build mindsets through our STEAM work. Thank you.
Members of the board, do you have any questions of our presenter? Yes, please.
I do.
Mrs. Ogden.
First of all, I wanted to tell my colleagues that I had the opportunity to go to the STEAM Symposium this week, and I was amazed. Rachel, we talked that night, and just kudos to you and to the staff for putting that together. It was amazing, seeing the community partners there and what the students had worked on. And I had the opportunity to listen to a few presentations from students, and they gave me their pitch of what, of what their project was about. And I was really impressed with the depth of their knowledge and how they had really, really gotten into these projects. Also had a moment to talk to some of our staff members and how pleased they are at the implementation. So I think we've learned a lot from piloting this at Short Pump and Rolfe, which I think is, obviously, we've talked about this before, is the way to go. To give things a try, work out the kinks, and then we're going to roll it out, which I think we're obviously ready for. But it was a great evening. Huge crowd. Huge crowd.
Yes.
I was just amazed at the number of people that were there. And so anyway, I think y'all are on the right path, and I want to thank you for all the hard work. It is showing tremendously.
Thank you.
And thank you for representing us that night.
No
Thank
problem.
you very much for reporting back. Anyone else have a question or suggestion, comment? Mr. Puckett?
Yes, I commend you for your work, but I just have need a little clarity. I saw art, and I saw athletics, and I saw a little bit about water and science. I'm assuming that there are other things that have taken place. You just focused on those 3 as being kind of really unique, kind of first stabs at working through this. But technology and engineering are in there somewhere too.
And I think, yes, absolutely. There have been other experiences. These are the ones we chose to highlight. And as Mrs. Ogburn pointed out, a lot of the work that has happened this year is informing how we move forward. Okay. So now that we have the design tool that has gone through a lot of iteration and acceptance and eyes on it from administrators to teachers, not just from these 2 schools, but others as well, we now feel we have the tools to really sit down and discuss what is a quality STEAM learning experience look like. And moving forward, you'll see more of those interdisciplinary examples come to life.
Okay. How are we with training faculty and staff, particularly?
Right now, they're engaging, as we mentioned, a Schoology course that is face-to-face. I'm working closely with those onboarding 5 schools to also have some other face-to-face options throughout the spring and summer. And then the schools are also working closely together to develop a plan for next year, and they have a document to do that where we can talk about what kind of professional learning has happened already and where they see a need based on that implementation and action guide and their knowledge with and work with the design tools. So those are informing because each school is a unique learning community, and we want to honor the hard work that they've done to date.
Okay, and a couple more. Any of this taking place in the summer? Any opportunities for students in the summer related upon what you've done this year?
As far as students go?
Yes.
Yes, I'm working closely with Farrah Elliott in our CTE department, and we are actually going to pilot a coding camp this summer. Okay. That's our first try, is some summer curriculum opportunities for students. And then once we see the success in that, then we can grow from there.
Okay, and one more for you. Maymont and VCU partners, I'm just wondering, have we, and maybe we have, because you mentioned community partners, have we ever given any thought to Virginia State University or Virginia Union University, University of Richmond, community colleges, the biotech park down in the city, those anything there?
We'll explore those opportunities. We did have University of Richmond's Math Department representative of us, or with us at the STEAM Symposium. So I think those partnerships came along as a start, and now we
Right.
can start to expand, because I do feel it's important to embrace all of our higher ed
Right.
partnerships in the area.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Pike. Mrs. Ogden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one more thing. I think it's important, just for anybody that's listening or might watch later, to point out that this is a real time of change in Henrico. And we're obviously making some big decisions as to the future, and with the middle school transformation and all of the things that we're doing in the middle school and elementary school level. And I would just hope that people would be patient, because this is not a thing that you roll out immediately. We have 50,000 students. We have to see what works, and we have to train teachers, and those things take time. And I know that y'all are working on it diligently, and I just know that I've heard from a lot of my constituents who want this done yesterday. But I know, too, that when we surveyed parents a couple years ago, when we asked them, where do you want middle schools to go? What do you see that is in maybe other schools that we don't have? This was number 2. The number 1 was the Gifted Center, which we've now opened in Wilder. We're moved ahead with that. But our middle school transformation, it takes time. And I think we have responded to what the community wanted. And we're adding STEAM, but again, we're just asking for a little patience, because I get emails every day. What are we doing about this and that? And I know y'all are working as hard as you can to get this moving forward. And I had a parent today say to me, but it's only in 2 schools. And I'm like, yes, it is, and we're, next year will be 5 more, and then we're expanding. So I think it's important. I'm going to refer a few parents to your presentation to let them know. The only thing I would add is at the end, when you showed the 2 documents that, I'm going to go back to it, when you talk about the STEAM implementation and the action guide, I wonder is that on our website? I assume it is somewhere, maybe?
It's available right now. As of this itself, no. Besides, in our board docs, we did include it in what was uploaded to board docs today, as well as the draft that was posted last year at our middle school update.
Right.
So it's available in that. We are working to expand our resources through our STEAM website, which will include for different stakeholders, but available to everyone, so it's there.
Well, I think maybe what would help is a little bit more communication with parents as to what we are doing, what's coming, a timeline of how the rollout is going to happen. There are some, like the parents I talked to today, had no idea who are the next 5 schools. So some information from parents that this is a time of change. This is something we are really putting a lot of time and money towards, and we're hiring new teachers all the time, that kind of thing, and expanding this, I think would give a little bit of reassurance to the community that yes, this is a priority, and we are moving in the right direction. And with a school system this size, it takes a little while, and we want to be sure we get it right. So I don't know how we do that, but I think just communicating to parents, especially in the fall with the new schools, this is what we're rolling out, and that kind of thing, I think would help a lot.
We'll work on those things, and within the plans that the schools are individually working on, there is a section where they look at different stakeholders and really have to input what their communication plans might be and how we can support them to do that. So we did take that into consideration, and we can look at our district level
Right. I think
communication as well.
We need to toot our own horn that we're doing this.
Yeah.
I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Cox.
Are we able to, do we know right now which of those 5 schools are
Yes,
middle
ma'am.
schools? Then this would be a really good time to go ahead and say what they are.
Sure, it's Pocahontas Middle, Hungry Creek Middle, Holman, Brooklyn, and Elko.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's Superintendent, I thought you were going to add something there, but.
I think it's probably been covered. I just wanted to note, in regard to your comment about making sure that we are communicating to our broader audiences. I think this tool is really designed for leaders, but there are also associated documents that might be more suited to for public consumption on the website. But certainly, that's something that we're mindful of, and I appreciate you bringing up that point. And I would just say that, and absolutely, to get to deep implementation and to do something well, it does take time and concentrated support. And so using, some anchor schools and then spreading beyond that allows an opportunity to do things right and to learn lessons. But what it doesn't mean is that other schools are sitting by idly waiting. I just wanted to point out that with our emphasis on the learner profile, this whole idea of the HLP and the deeper learning, and schools are sharing and learning from one another. You saw a number of other middle school principals attend the symposium, and they share within their meetings. So there's certainly all eyes towards what it is we're aiming for when it comes to deeper learning, and an understanding that the STEAM concepts certainly further what we're after. But I wouldn't want anyone to think that the other schools are stuck waiting in the wings without the supports and without the resources. And so, but absolutely, we can work to communicate that.
Thank you. And it's certainly a hot topic. At certain times, it percolates up, and now's a good time. It not only does it share what we're doing in middle school, but it shares what we're doing in the broader sense of STEAM as we're looking at our decisions with the Math Science Innovation Center. This demonstrates our commitment. We're not retreating. We're advancing, and not just in another direction, but in an aggressive way. So, and before we leave the topic, I want to thank all of you as well, but also want to take just a moment and make sure that Dr. Grant receives. There she is. That she, I remember we were it'll be 3 years ago this coming, at the church, and we had, and that's when you began to roll some of this out, and to think about the fact that we have the Young Scholars Academy work that's been done, we have this work that's being done, we have the more broadly middle school transformation as a whole. And meanwhile, the elementary and the high school remain a bedrock of what we're getting done. So it really is, I've said, and we've all said for a long time, what are we going to do about our middle schools? What are we going to do about our middle schools? And Dr. Grant's been steady working with she and her team. And so I don't want us to leave this point without acknowledging your leadership there. And with that being said, what are we going to do about our middle schools? So thank you very much for your hard work, all of you. And if we didn't seem patient, you've earned our patience. You've earned our willingness to let you do your work. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, for the next item, we are prepared to provide the board a review of the annual special education plan. And to do that, Donna Davenport has come to the podium. All right.
I was told to be patient, that they were going to do the clicking for me. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Dr. Cashwell, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you all today. Every year we receive funding from the federal government in order to support our programming for students with disabilities. And part of receiving that funding requires that I present to our Special Education Advisory Committee as well as to our school board our annual plan for the use of those funds. I feel like I've said this to you many times before, but just want to reiterate, the funding that we receive from the federal government, the grant dollars, is a very, very small portion of the funding that is used to support our students with disabilities in our division. The vast majority of funding for students with disabilities comes from state and local dollars, so we're very grateful for the support that we get from our county and from our state. But this plan and the information I'm going to share with you today is specifically regarding those funds that are received from the federal government. As always, we've not received our actual allocations for the federal grant at this time, so these projections are based on the funds that were received in previous years. The vast majority of grant funds are used to support personnel services. They support the teachers and instructional assistants that are a few of the teachers and instructional assistants that we use to teach our students. We also use grant funds for contract services. So we are currently using contract services to provide speech services for some students, sign language interpretation, school nursing services, and occasionally we will use contract funds to support occupational therapy and physical therapy, although the vast majority of our speech, OT, and PT resources are done by HCPS employees. A small portion of the grant funds are used to provide materials and supplies, both technology and paper pencil supplies for instruction for students. And of course, some grant funds are used to support other charges, those administrative fees and miscellaneous charges that are used to support students with disabilities. There are a couple of things I wanted to just bring up in relation to our personnel considerations. The majority of the positions that were put into the grant around 10 years ago. Unfortunately, the increases in the grant allocations that we get each year from the federal government and the state have not maintained pace with our salary increases and the increased cost of benefits for our teachers and positions in the grant. So we're working very collaboratively with our friends in the finance department and looking at this over our 5-year plan to address and make sure that we take that into consideration as we plan our budget in coming years. Along with the school age grant, we receive a small funding amount to support early childhood special education services. These grant funds go to support 2 of our now 44. That's a change from previous presentations. We used to have 42 early childhood special education teachers, and I'm so excited that next year we're going to have 44. And these funds support 2 of those personnel, along with a small allocation for materials and supplies. I couldn't have the opportunity to stand up here and talk to you all without taking a really quick minute just to celebrate, and I'm hopeful that I get more time to talk to you about this in August, but just want to take a few minutes to, as you said, toot our own horns, because we are doing some really, really outstanding and exciting things in exceptional education with your support. We have provided more professional development in the past 2 years than we have historically, both whole school for every exceptional education teacher in the division, as well as administrators' professional development. And I really feel that we are on that cusp of really turning the corner and moving the needle for our students with disabilities in this division. We're continuing to expand and build greater opportunities for students through strengthening our continuum, as well as through providing just more innovative types of services and supports for students. We have a new dyslexia advisor, and she's phenomenal, and she is helping us do so many things in developing curriculum, developing training. Every school in this division has gone through a dyslexia simulation this year. Every faculty of every school, and that is phenomenal, and that is something I talk to a lot of SPED directors across the state. No one else can say that. And thank you guys. We have some additional compliment this year. I'm so grateful. We're all so grateful that you've heard from our parents and our families and our teachers and our principals, and we are going to put those IAs and those teachers to great use next year. So I want to leave you with our exceptional education mission statement. This is something that my department worked really hard on throughout the first 6 months of this school year. We wanted to get back to our why. We wanted to really ground ourselves in what it is that we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing, because unfortunately, sometimes it feels like we get caught up in the problem solving and dealing with some of the more contentious situations in special education. But at the root of it, we all got into our jobs and do what we do because we love the families and the students that we support. So we spent a lot of time developing this mission statement, and we're trying to use it to brand our department and to really ground us in the work that we do. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain them now.
Thank you very much. Members of the board, are there questions, comments, shares? Well, I will, just like we did with Dr. Grant, we want to thank you for your and your department's hard work. You know, when the report came out from Ann Holton and some others, we sort of, just like we did in middle school, so what are we going to do about it? And y'all, I wouldn't say slowly, but you immediately went to work and deliberately and building on what you already had been accomplishing. And then you were willing to come back and say, this is what we need. And fortunately, we were able in some places to find it. So It's, I think you said that you feel like you're about to turn the corner, and I think that's accurate as well. I think that is sort of the feedback, and one of the things in the advisory committee is that I heard from time to time was that there's inconsistency across the division. There's some leadership that does a phenomenal job, and then a different building, same circumstance, doesn't do as well, and everybody pointed to the professional development as a way to accomplish that. So it's very exciting and very encouraging that that's where you're putting a lot of your emphasis. So board should be, I know we're pleased with the report, but I can vouch for the fact that it's answering the call of the constituents. So
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And of course, we'll be seeking your approval for the special education plan at our meeting this evening. Next, we want to provide a review for you of the 1920 Head Start supplemental funding and transportation waiver requests, so that you have an opportunity to review that before we seek your approval. Ms. Alsop?
Good afternoon, and we do have 2 waivers that we are submitting to Head Start that we would like your approval of. The first is that we're requesting supplemental funding to be able to purchase 2 playgrounds for our, at 2 of our preschool locations for this coming year. And then the other is for our annual transportation waiver request, where we would often Head Start wants us to have our students wearing with seat belts and a monitor, and because that is not something that we provide, we're requesting a waiver from Head Start with that piece.
Thank you. Members of the board, are there any questions about the presentation and the material there? And I believe isn't that an action item for
It is an
tonight?
action item for this evening.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your work, too.
All right, next, Mr. Sorensen's going to provide the board an update related to potential plans for comprehensive redistricting. Mr. Sorensen?
Thank you, Dr. Cashwell. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As Dr. Cashwell indicated, I do want to walk through our comprehensive redistricting process, where we are and where we expect to be over the next year and a half. So on February 8th, we did issue a request for proposals, or an RFP, for consulting services for school attendance boundary adjustments. We're in the final stages of interviewing the top-ranking applicants for that RFP. Those are going great, so we certainly expect to be in a position for the county purchasing department to award a contract next month, May 2019. Once the contract is awarded, we will be very busy over the summer. We'll start gathering our data for the process. And we'll also create a boundary adjustment committee. So this committee will be made up of members from across the county, a good cross-section across the county, and they will actually lead the process. They will develop plans, they will receive public input from community members that are not on the committee, and they will ultimately develop a plan to bring back to you. So much of the public work will take place in the fall and winter of 2019 and 2020. We planned in the RFP to have about 30 meetings. Could be a few more, could be a few less, but we certainly plan on about 30. And I do want to talk, some of the meetings may be influenced a bit by the size of our boundary adjustment committee. Just to be clear, the RFP did indicate we plan on having 70 members, but through some of our discussions with the potential consultant, a smaller committee may be more appropriate, may help us in the process. So that's something we'll decide on early and as we move forward. But we do plan on having about 30 meetings, give or take, depending on the progress. The committee will be back before you in the spring of 2020 to present to you their recommended plan. And then, of course, whatever action you take, we'll proceed with that. But we do hope to be done in the spring of 2020, and the plan will be implemented in September of 2021 with the opening of the new schools.
Members of the board, is there anyone who dares ask a question or venture into this area?
Screaming you hear all across the county.
Yes.
That R word, yeah. No.
No, okay.
I say not.
Mr. Pike, we'll move from left to right.
Okay.
How are the committee members selected?
Sure. So we will have a rubric to go through, so we can certainly show the community how we chose committee members. We're looking at business members, parents, a good cross-section of the county. We don't have the exact components of that rubric, but we will have something that very clearly states how we do choose. It will be across the county, so all magisterial districts will be represented. And again, we have a good mix of different members within those magisterial districts.
Okay. And, you know, I'm just going to ask out of probably ignorance. So when we look at redistricting, this seems to be a very familiar template that school systems follow, okay? And I'm just asking, is there anything else out there? Because redistricting, all it does is create heartburn. It creates heartburn for the school board. It creates heartburn for the staff members that are working through it. It probably creates heartburn for the people that will be on the committee. And I'm really, and I know if you don't have an answer, that's fine, but I'm just wondering, what else is out there? I mean, is there anything else there that a school system in Timbuktu has done that works? And I'm guessing the answer is there's not an answer, because this is what we always do. And I'm just, you know.
Sure. I think the best answer I can provide to you is when you look at capacity, there are really only a couple options we can take. One would be trailers, one would be redistricting, one would be new construction.
Mm-hmm.
So as we move forward, we are looking at some new construction to help with capacity, but that's not going to address all of our issues countywide.
Right.
So redistricting it is a painful process, but it would typically be our best response to help even out some of the capacity across the county.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, yes.
Since you brought it up, I will echo your, the comments you made about looking at new construction, because I know that in certain parts of the county, mine being one of them, where we are getting very crowded. And I got an email yesterday asking me, what are you going to do with the Kane Road property as far as redistricting? So I know that's going to be a topic of conversation. So one thing that I just want the public to know is part of this will be looking at the future. And what will our future is predicting as best as you can what your future needs will be. And so if there is a need anywhere in the county for new construction, for to be added to this mix, we obviously have to take it into account. For example, we have Highland Springs and Tucker being renovated. Capacity will be increased. That is the plan, at least. And so we'll take that into account for the high school level. And we have the new school in Brooklyn coming on, and so we will take that into account for creating boundaries for that. So this will be a fairly complicated process, I would imagine, because of that very thing with having 3 schools bringing changes in districts. So I think that just so the public knows that we will look at all aspects of this, and if ultimately it's decided as a part of this that for future growth to alleviate, as Mr. Pike said, it's not only redistricting, but the possibility of new construction. So put that out there, that that's on the table too. It will have to be part of the discussion.
Yes, ma'am. And Ms. Osborne, to your point, so focused on the redistricting piece of the contract, but this is also an annual contract.
Right.
So we'll have whoever the winning consultant is, they'll be around for several years to help us in the future. Should we put on additions or new construction, new buildings altogether, we'll have someone under contract that can help us work through that process.
Well, and our current CIP includes the possible additions and that kind of thing already. So
It does, correct.
Yeah, just because that's the question I've been asked already is, are you including the possibility of new construction? So that answer is yes.
We most certainly are. We tried to write the RFP as open as we could to get advice on where we might put an addition or new building as well as part of it.
Mrs. Cox, did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
So the question, I think if my math serves me correctly, the last comprehensive redistricting was around a decade ago. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
So I'm assuming with anything, we're going to look at those things that worked well, those things that didn't from that last process, and implement them for this process to try to mitigate some of the issues we've had within this last 10 years. And I'm hoping, me personally, that when we do get the findings of the CIP, there will be room to adjust based upon prioritization. I think, one thing that we've seen specifically with Virginia Randolph's facility is that, you know, we should have done more with that facility. And I'm hoping that we don't just look at the programmatic offerings at that facility for our students and just put them somewhere and make them fit a building instead of try to make a building fit them, because there's specialization that needs to occur, and I'm hoping that this is kind of all encompassing, I guess you could say. With that being said, also, I guess I've been on the board since I've been here. I know Ms. Cock has been like a broken record, and every chance she's gotten, she's just said comprehensive redistricting. So, you know, we all have felt that, and we all are excited about this opportunity. And I just think that this is a great chance for us to be forward-thinking as far as our county is concerned, because of the ebb and flow of the context in which we're in now. So I'm really excited about this, and hopefully we can accomplish a lot with this, and we can measure twice, cut once, and we can kind of develop the paradigm in which we're going to move forward in mitigating these issues.
Yes, sir. And so this is certainly a process we don't want to go through more than we need to, so we're going to try to be very comprehensive in how we approach this and make sure we work with all of our internal departments and respond to input we get back from the community. Yes, sir.
Yes, Mrs. Cox.
I'm so happy to be having this conversation. You know, in 2008, I was appointed to the last Comprehensive Redistricting Committee. I was PTA president, and I represented Hermitage High School. And it did take us almost 2 years back then to go through the process. We did not have all that technology that we have today. Literally, I used markers and crayons and drew on maps. This is going to take a lot less time, in other words, than it did. But there is one part of that, in speaking to some of the best practices pieces, was that there was 2 representatives from each of our schools. And I know in the past, when we've had the short comprehensive redistrictings, we've had representatives and such from districts. But I think it's imperative that every school has a voice. And so when we are thinking this through, that we are mindful to have every school to have at least one representative. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be a PTA person. It can be a parent. It could be a teacher. It can be a community member. But it's someone that is zoned in that school and is vested for that school so that they have a voice at the table. I know that does make a big committee, and I get that. But what we did last time, and remember it was 2 for every school last time, and I think we had 45 schools back then. It was before CACLE. What we did is you then broke up into your elementary, middle, and high. And so when you break that up, then it made it the smaller groups that you were able to really do business, to get down into the weeds and to talk through things. And then the larger group would meet quarterly or such as it went through. But I really would ask that we do heed something like that, because I want to make sure, I think we all do, that everyone has a voice at the table, every school has a voice. Comprehensive redistricting or redistricting is the worst word for a school board member, for a parent, for school, for staff. It brings up more passion than anything else that we deal with and that we do in our jobs as servant leaders in education. But the comprehensive redistricting is one piece, as Ms. Ogborn was saying. New construction is the other piece. Mr. Pike was asking, what is it that we can do? We need to do both. Our county is growing. We have to look at those trends, but we need to make sure to work with our county side, our county planning, for this to be done thoughtfully and right. And as my colleague here said, mindfully by cutting twice. Measuring twice and cutting once. See, I would have gotten it mixed up, right? But I'm very excited to be a part of this, and I'm glad we're moving in this direction and that we're taking a look at it all together.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good.
I'm not a seamstress.
All right, very good. Anything else for the good of the cause? Wonderful. Well, good. Well, thank you for outlining that for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Very much.
All right, next there are 3 items under operations being provided for your review that we'll again ask for action on later this evening, and Mr. Sorensen stands ready to answer any questions you might have. One is in relation to a review of the construction contract for bathroom improvements at Godwin High School. Any questions for Mr. Sorensen?
Any questions, board members?
Yes, just real quick.
Please,
Is that school-wide?
No, it would be the main bathrooms between the gym and the commons, both
Okay.
boys and girls.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else regarding this item?
All right, next is a review of the construction contract for a practice field at Freeman High School.
Ms. Marshall, are you listening?
Any questions?
I know that lighting is not an option, but I think we made arrangements to put in the necessary items so that in the future, lighting could be easily added. Is that still correct?
We have an alternate for the conduit for lighting. So if the budget permits, we will do the conduit, but if we run into issues where something needs to be cut, that would likely be one of the first things cut. But there is money currently in the plan to put in the conduit in case lighting is necessary in the future. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, I know that's been a long time coming, so look forward to that review, taking action on that this afternoon. And then,
Yep, next is a review of the amendment to the lease agreement with Saturn Ventures for CTE Resource Center. Questions?
any questions regarding the Fourth Amendment? I just thought that was interesting.
The Fourth Amendment.
It says the Fourth Amendment. Yeah.
Mr. Lawyer had to say that.
No search and seizure there, but go ahead.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And that's because we don't have room for them to be in central office, is that correct?
It is. I believe they've been at this location for
Yep.
quite some time, correct?
Okay, so it's just, I mean, that's why it's to hold their offices and such, because we don't have room
Correct.
here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Capacity, an issue.
Another
again.
capacity issue, all right.
Very good. Okay.
All right, and that concludes items from the superintendent.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Is there any unfinished business from the board? Is there any new business from any board member that would like to share? I want to thank our colleagues who attended the National School Board Association meeting and brought back the material and provided the good reports that you provided. It was makes it very worthwhile for all of us. So, gosh, I feel like I was there. There being nothing else, then the work session, we'll conclude the work session, but only after I mention the upcoming meetings, which of course we'll meet here at 6:30 for our evening session, and then on May the 9th, we have a work session to begin at 2 p.m. with the meeting time subject to change. There being no further business, we are adjourned.